So we're back, we're talking about the band Divine Ascension. Now, I've reviewed their recent album, I forgot what it's called, but I gave that a review, and basically the gist I gave it was, it's a decent album, but nothing at all kind of special in the slightest. So it's decent, it's musically pleasing enough, but it doesn't really do anything unique or kind of special or grand at all. It's just, yeah, it's alright, and other than that there's nothing special. But in that review I kept comparing it to the previous album, Liberator, and I said, compared to the previous album, Liberator, this new album is extremely bad. Like, just how much the new album plummets when compared to the previous album, Liberator, is unbelievable. It plummets so much when compared to this album. It just, like, it goes from a decent album if it stands on its own, but when you compare it to Liberator, it kind of sucks. Because you just listen to Liberator, there's no reason to listen to the new album because it's just absolutely dreadful in comparison. It is absolutely awful. And some of these reasons is they did have a rhythm guitarist, not the lead guitarist, so it shouldn't be too much of a loss, but I'm guessing it was. And they had a keyboard player, which they also lost. So they lost a sound that kind of run throughout with them, and they also lost the rhythm guitarist. So they only had the one, which was the lead, and he did do leads, but then for half the album he didn't do them. There was only 5 tracks with solos, and then the other 5 there was nothing. And then just how grand the sound was and how diverse songs became and just how much was in songs, it was just limited. It just became a lot more basic and radio friendly. Musically it was still a bit advanced and everything, but it didn't really do a lot. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Liberator, which has the keyboardist, has the rhythm guitarist, the lead guitarist, the vocalist, and great kind of songwriting and structures. So the first track, Dawn Brings No Mercy, we start off with the kind of keys being quite kind of in your face, so heavy keys off the bat, and then you've got the guitar kind of slowly approaching his way in, and then you just got a mix of powerful keys and guitars and everything. And then with the verse coming in, the vocalist, she has a very powerful voice and high energy. Her voice has a roundness to it, so it's not kind of piercing and one of these voices where they have more of a shriek to them. It's definitely got a bit of a bottom end to her voice. But it's got a lot of energy at the start, and then the chorus, it opens it up a bit, it slows things down a little. And then after the chorus, we already are kind of showing even more of why this album is quite amazing, because the second verse doesn't really do anything that the first verse did. First verse, it was quite heavy and aggressive and everything, and the second one is melodic, and then it kind of builds up, but it doesn't build up back into what the original verse was. It's still just something new. And then we got the chorus, and then after that we get something new yet again, and then we get solos. And even here it's better because it's not just guitar lead solos, we actually have key solo and guitar solo, and they keep interchanging, so they keep fading in and out. So you'll have the key start, and then the guitar come in, and then it goes to keys, then it goes to the guitar. And the keyboardist has a lot of talent. It sounds great what he's doing. The guitarist sounds amazing. And as far as the song goes, it's great because it can't get stale, because you're not re-listening and retreading the same thing. Everything keeps changing. You had the kind of really long intro with the keys, and then the guitar doing some different things. So we'll start off with this thing, and then it'll go to this thing, and it'll go to this thing before he properly introduces himself. And then he does. So you've already got an intro which kind of keeps building and changing it up. Then you've got the first one, which is quite kind of heavy and everything. Then we got the chorus. The chorus has highs to it, where musically it goes higher, then it goes lower, it opens itself out a bit. So even within the chorus, there's a few things that change. The second verse, you go to a complete melody, and then when it kind of builds up near the end, it's still new, and then same chorus, but then after that, again, it goes somewhere completely different with a melody. And then we got solos, where it is not just a guitar solo, it's keys and guitar. There's a lot being put on offer in just the first track, and it's just like, this is one track, but it could be about 5 tracks in one, with just how diverse and different it keeps changing everything up. It is absolutely amazing. The next track, Stronger, again, is quite different. It has more of a kind of laid-back beginning to it, but as it gets into the verse, it's actually a melodic verse. So completely changing it up now and stuff, but it doesn't last. Again, it builds up, so the chorus doesn't, it's not just one entire, not chorus, I mean verse. It's not one entire verse, there's 2 separate parts of the verse. And then when it comes to the chorus, there's actually 2 separate parts of the chorus. So you got the first part of the chorus, which builds it up, and the singer gets extremely high notes, so it's dun 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 dun. So she keeps going to her normal range, and then she keeps bringing it into really high notes, and then back down to the mid-range, back to the high note, and then back to the mid, and then back to the high. So the volume of her voice keeps going up and down, and you got a really nice lead that goes along with it under her voice, which just makes everything quite kind of big, because her voice is doing all the high notes, and because you have the kind of sweet lead going over it, it makes everything quite kind of powerful. And then the second part of the chorus, it just gets a bit more kind of energy. Her voice isn't doing all the kind of unique kind of highs and everything with the great leads. It's just a bit more of a kind of bombastic kind of riff and everything, with her voice just being in the kind of mid-range. You only get the guitar solo in this track. You don't get keys. There's only 2 key solos in this album, but one is more than what was on the newest album. So it's still great, just having the 2. So the solo, you have melody at the beginning and everything, and it's quite musical. There's still shred in there. There's a great tone to it. So overall, it's a kind of diverse, kind of lengthy solo, which again is fantastic. And then you've got the melodic verse at the start of the song, which is just basically singer and kind of just keys and everything. There's not really anything else there until eventually the band start kind of coming in and building up, and then you got the first part of the chorus with them really high notes, and there's a really sweet lead that kind of goes under it, and it sounds amazing. Then you got the more kind of energetic, bombastic second part of the chorus. Then it goes back into the verse, which completely just maintains a heaviness to it. So again, it's something new. So again, there's multiple layers to this song, and it's completely different. The previous track, it was heavy chorus, and then melodic, heavy, melodic, and now this one, it's just everything's been switched around. So it starts with the melodic, and then it goes to a chorus which has 2 parts, unlike the first one that only had one type of chorus. So it's just like, there's so much going on, and there's so much diversity, and we've only got 2 tracks in, but it's just like, there's so much going on. I've probably cleared about half an album in a standard, typical band's catalogue with musicality. Because with most bands, you just kind of get, okay, here's our intro, our verse, our chorus, and well, that's about it. So because I've got 2 type of verses in one song, 2 choruses, then another kind of verse which is completely different, and there could be 2 of them, and then you've got something that comes after the chorus, and then you've got multiple solos, and I'm 2 tracks in. Yeah, I've cleared about half an album already in a standard band's album with everything they do. there's so much going on so far, and we're only 2 tracks in. And as I say, the voice is incredible because it's just like they could do a lot, but it could still be a mess. Well, it isn't. The voice has a lot of range. Like in Stronger, that first part of the chorus where she goes into her massive highs and everything, and she comes back down to mids, and then the lead, and then the lead solos are very diverse, and they have length to them. They're actually long solos. And then you had the key solos interwoven with the guitars, so they kept kind of dueling against each other. One goes out, the other comes in, and then he goes out, and the other one goes in trying to top what the other one did. High energy, and it's not just simple guitar solos, there is key solos. I prefer guitars, but it's nice just to get something different, you know. So you've got great leads, you've got songs that keep changing, and there's something always new to listen to, and it's always great. It's not just a part where I go, this is kind of dull, I kind of preferred the previous verse. It's just like, no, I still like the rhythm, I still like the vocals, I like this new direction. It's not better than the old direction, I still like that. I want them all to be there. I don't want one to cancel out the other, because then it would make the song blander and more repetitive. I like how much is going on with this. So far 2 tracks, and it's just like, this is unbelievably incredible. I don't really know what else I can really say or even offer. If I was to go to them and say how to make these 2 tracks any better, I can't. I'm not capable of doing that. They do everything which I would ask a band to kind of do when they go in to do an album. Have the song last long, have multiple layers, never repeat yourself, have unbelievable vocals, long guitar solos, leads throughout, and keep everything changing and evolving. Have melody and keep changing, don't have the same verse. Always keep evolving, have leads throughout. It's just like, they've done everything. There's nothing left to really ask for. So let's get into the next track, Liberator. So title track of the album, does this really mean it's the best track? Well, technically no, it's probably not the best, but it's still amazing. I wouldn't say it's one of the worst or it's okay. I could easily say it's one of the best, but there's so many tracks that are just unbelievably amazing. I can't really say which one's better than the other. They just all nailed the mark. This track actually starts quite soft, soft and brood. Well, it's not soft. It's just kind of like dark and brooding. It's like really dark, chugging kind of guitars and everything, just dun 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 dun. So quite kind of dark and everything, and then eventually the guitars get into a bit more of a kind of speeding kind of gallop, and then the keys come in prevalent over the top, sounding quite one of these kind of fairy tale kind of key things, very kind of bright and everything, while the guitars are being quite intense in the back. Then the intro again does another bloody change, and everything kind of strips back, goes very kind of slow, and then you just get a slow kind of musical lead. It's not musical as in it's bright or anything, it's just a slow guitar lead just over the rest of the band, which is really kind of really stripped back. Everything's just really slow, there's not a lot going on, just kind of letting the sound just kind of play out for itself. And then it actually comes to the verse after all of that, just to get to there. And the verse is heavy, but it's not like the first track heavy verse, and obviously it's not soft and melodic like the second track. This is basically just, it's heavy, but everything is extremely open, so there's no kind of rushing or high energy. It's just open with the voice just not kind of going at a rapid pace. You just sings her word, takes her time with it, but because she has a lot of high energy and everything, it still maintains a high energy because of it. The high energy of everything kind of comes in when the chorus happens. So when the chorus happens, again there is a bit of a kind of lead going on with the guitar for the chorus. Her voice kind of picks up the pace a little bit, gets a bit more of a energy behind her, just to make it a bit more exciting. As in the verse, there was energy, but it was a bit more kind of broody sound she was going for. As for with the chorus, she kind of takes it up a bit and puts a bit more of a kind of brightness to it and energy. So there's a lot of energy and there's a lead to it, and it's musical and everything. And then going back into the verse, you've got that kind of guitar and heavy key intro with the keys that sounded like the kind of fairy tale and everything thing. And they just take that part of the intro to kind of play from the chorus to the verse. The verse is actually the same here, so basically that now means that it's less layered than the other tracks. Is this a bad thing? Not necessarily. We've had a lot going on in the previous two tracks, so it is nice just to get a track that is a little bit more laid back. Like, it's great having all this stuff going on, but it can get overwhelming. So it is nice just to kind of lighten it up a bit. Not that it's going extremely basic, like the track is 6 minutes, so there is still a fair bit going on. Because when the chorus comes back, we get the keyboard lead. Now, he struggled doing this lead because there is a video on YouTube where you actually see him trying to do this lead, and he messes it up unbelievable amount of times. He really struggles to do this lead. So it sounds quite technical. I think I've heard better, but I've heard the keyboardist from Firewind and he's brutal. So yeah, I've heard better, but it still does sound intense and everything, and if you wanted to know how hard it was for him, he really struggled to nail this solo. After him, the song goes into a different part. It's not a verse, it's just some whole new kind of thing. It's heavy with a bit of a pace to it, but not too quick. And then we get the guitar solo, and then it kind of goes soft with just a faded background kind of guitar noise that then just blows into the kind of chorus. The chorus does some subtle kind of changes and everything. You got her voice in the background. It is very subtle, but she is kind of there in the background just to, I don't know, just add a little bit more to the chorus. It's not completely new, but there is just these little things here and there just to kind of spruce it up by a little kind of bit. So a bit more basic, but there's still stuff going on, especially when the solos come in, because you start with the key solo, then you get something that isn't actually new. Then you get the guitar solo, and then you get a bit of a background noise of guitar leading into the chorus, which has a few subtle things. But you need to kind of listen to it. If you're not really paying attention, you're probably not going to notice. If you are kind of listening, you'll kind of notice. I think that was something new. You do have to think about it, because it is very kind of like, it's not in your face like, well, clearly this is something different. It's just like, I think it is, because it's just subtle noises, and that's what does it. So let's get into the next track, My Contender Lies. My Contender Lies is kind of where we get into songs which you could actually say, this ain't really one of the best, this is kind of one of the worst of the albums. So musically it's still great and everything, it's just basically when you've got all these things going on and all this high energy and so many kind of songs with so many layers, and each section, one's not better than the other, because that's a problem. If you got one kind of verse and you got another verse, it still needs to sound good. Just because it's changed, if the second verse sounds completely crap, it's not going to work. So you have to keep changing a sound, and each sound has to sound incredible. So there's a lot more work having to be involved to make a song have so many layers and come up with all these musically different ideas and have all of them sound amazing. It makes it a lot harder. But with My Contender Lies, I just think it kind of runs like the Liberator. So overall, it's not as diverse as the first two tracks, but it's still musically great. It's just the music they're showing just doesn't have as much appeal as the other tracks, because Liberator had energy to it. My Contender Lies kind of lacks energy. So it kind of starts with just keys and everything, and there's not actually much going on. It's just kind of the keys, noise. Eventually some subtle kind of taps on the drums come in and everything, and then eventually the guitars come in. And that leads to the vocalist. There is something new, a new idea and concept being played here, because musically the singer is singing melodically, and the keys are playing melodically, and the drums are also playing melodically, but the guitars are playing brutal. So the guitars are not always playing, it's just a chug, pause, and then you've got the sound of the keys and drums and the vocalist going. So the guitars will just dun dun dun, dun 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 type of thing, so they keep leaving pauses where the really musical melodic side comes through, but then the guitars add that kind of crunch. And when the guitars do the dun dun dun, so does the drumming. But then the second the guitars cut out, the drum goes immediately to just subtle taps and everything. So this verse obviously then has kind of layers to it, because at the same time there is heavy going on and melodic over the top of each other. So it's like two separate things, so it is quite kind of unique there. But obviously it's not high energy, it's just like interesting. It does start getting a bit more kind of heavy and everything, and when the chorus comes in, the sound just really opens up and everything. But because it's just such a really open sound they got going for, it's not got energy, because the singer's not singing in one of them cheerful ways, because the sound's so open, she has to linger on the words and everything, which doesn't really usually bring across energy and everything. So it's just an open chorus which sounds fine, but it's just not got a lot of kind of fun and energy going along with it. So it's just like, yeah, that's nice, and that's kind of as much as it is. It's not just like, this sounds awesome. Well, it does, but it's just, you know, with high energy stuff, it's just, there is fun to go along with it. Second verse still the same, chorus still the same. It changes after that second chorus, which it does. This is actually probably better than the actual verses, because the vocalist kind of uses her voice in a better way. It just sounds a lot more musical, and her voice here, it sounds nicer, the range she uses. There's no solo in this song either, for some reason, I don't know why, because there's kind of a solo in every other track. So because of that, there's no solo, there's not a lot really going on, there's not a lot of that kind of fun energy to the track, which leaves it just like, there's a great vocalist, there is stuff kind of going on, there is still a fair bit of layers going on. Like, the song lasts 5 minutes 49 seconds, so it's still near enough to 6 minutes, so there is stuff going on. It's just, there's no solo, which brings out that it loses that kind of diversity to kind of put something new in there. It's not got the fun energy and everything, so everything kind of just kind of goes at these kind of slow paces and everything. So it's a shame. It's still good, it's just not keeping up with Liberator, Stronger, and Dawn Brings No Mercy. So let's get into the next track with Sorrow's Sacrifice. So with Sorrow's Sacrifice, this is now a melodic, but not a typical melodic. It's one of these melodics which is done extremely well. So starting off, it just starts melodic. You've got the clean channel guitars and everything with kind of keys, and then the drums and everything's done melodic and everything. It's a nice rhythm they got going. The vocalist, she holds her own and everything. She has a nice melodic voice. It still has, you can still tell there's power to her, and she still has that kind of roundness and kind of bass to her voice. And it's going well. Her voice holds up. The melody's nice, so it's enjoyable so far. You do like it and you are invested. But if it continues like this for, like, this song is 5 minutes 55, so again, very close to 6 minutes. If it kind of just continues like this throughout, it will kind of be a bit too slow and a bit of a drag. So still within the verse, it starts to kind of build up. The guitars kind of go onto the dirty channel, and they start just building up the pace. It's still slow and has a melody to it, but they're just bringing up that aggression. Then it goes into the chorus, where you've got male vocals, so I think it's just two people, so you've probably got two of the guitarists, or maybe two of the guitarists and the keyboardist, and they're just doing their gang vocals. All I want from you, I think, is what they say, so just all I want from you. And then The lead singer comes in, and then there's a bit of a lead with her, and then it goes back into the gang vocals, then it goes back to her with the lead underneath. There's a bit of energy, but then after that you start getting gallop, so it's just dun 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 dun. It's just like, it's constantly been built up, because we started off all clean, all melody, then switch into the dirty channel, but then just kind of slow pace. Then we've got gang vocals coming in with some nice kind of leads and everything, giving it a bit of a musicality with her voice, taking away from the aggression of the gang vocals. Then we've actually got full-on galloping going with her voice, using a lot more kind of power and energy, because she can do that with what's going on musically. If she was doing that previously with what was given, it would kind of not work. So the song has just kind of kept building up until it actually hit with all the kind of galloping and high energy of a proper kind of like heavy metal song. It's just like this would fit in like the first track with the heaviness. But then it brings it back down to the gang vocals, then it goes back to the galloping and everything, and then it goes back into the melodic. So it's like we've just gone from complete melody, and we've just slowly increased over a fair bit of time as well. It's not gone from 0 to 10. It goes up one increment each time over a long course, so it just slowly keeps building, which is great. Just going from melodic to just plain heavy, I think that's a bit boring, but when it keeps gradually increasing, obviously you've got all that variation and everything in here, and it keep going up. And then when it eventually gets to the big peak and everything, which it's been building to, it's just like, this is great, because you've had the build up, you know it's coming. It's just waiting. Then it brings it back down again. It's just like, it's melodic, but I'm not bored and everything, because I've just had the high energy of the chorus. So it always keeps you invested, and it keeps you on this kind of like roller coaster of a song, which is amazing. The rest of the song kind of plays all the same until it gets to the solo. The solo is a musical solo. There's little bits of speed in there, but he's not really doing anything flashy. He's basically just trying to do a musical solo. Again, it lasts a long time, which is fantastic, because I want to hear a solo portrayed in a song that sounds like this, because you can do something different. You can do something more musical, and that is what he does. He does a musical solo. Nothing really at all flashy, just something really musical, something that sounds really nice and pleasing, and lasts a long time, just to get a lot of stuff in there. And then when he finishes, it's like, yeah, I got what I needed. Great. So, a musical melodic song, which also has heavy elements and a really musical solo, and has a lot of differentiating parts, has incredible build, which is not just a quick build, it's a very slow gradual build. And then you've got the lead going on, and then musically again with the vocalist and the guitars and the rhythm, everything always consistently sounds incredible. There's not a part which is just like, oh, I'm not sure about this, the other part was great. It's just like each and every part of all these like bazillions of parts in the song all stand out and sound amazing. So it's great, and it's completely different to the other tracks because it's the melody track. So much going on so far. So let's just keep continuing to see if they're gonna hit a wall at some point. So Crystal Tears is another track which doesn't really do it for me like the other great ones. It's mostly again down to the fact that there's not enough energy kind of going on, therefore everything's always like the mid-tempo range, and nothing really kind of escapes that, which just makes everything a bit slow and a bit kind of drab. It's fine to have a mid-tempo thing, but you need something to kind of just bring the energy up a bit and a bit of differentiating, instead of it just kind of always being this kind of just middle range meh. So yeah, with the verses, you've basically just got everything at this mid-range slowness. Like, it's not melodic, but nothing's going fast, it's just this mid-range thing, and starting off, like, it sounds fine and everything, again, because the vocalist sounds great, musically it does sound great, it's just basically the tempo is just going at this slow pace, it's just like, it's kind of nice and everything, but I would like something, you know, that kind of comes out and just like, wow, this is great energy, this sounds amazing, this is really musical, because nothing of that's happening so far. You get a pre-chorus where the guitars kind of come in and they're doing a bit more of a kind of heavy chug and everything, but it still has this pace to it. It only kind of really kind of builds it back up again when it comes to the actual chorus, because with the actual chorus, it kind of gets a little quicker and builds the energy up a little bit, but it still kind of feels like you're kind of holding something back. Like, the energy and everything is nice, kinda. It's a bit turned down, really. I can tell there's a bit of energy there's a bit of a quickness to it, but it just seems like you're really just kind of holding back. And then it goes back into that verse, which is just incredibly, like, slow and everything. It's just like, everything's kind of slow, everything seems kind of held back and things. And even the solo, again, the previous track, which was quite kind of drab for me, didn't have a solo. This one actually has a solo, but nothing happens. It's just like, why with the songs which musically aren't spectacular, you're not putting in an incredible solo to at least kind of give a bit of life to it? You didn't give a solo in the other one, and with this one, it's incredibly short, and you don't really do much of anything. It is a solo. It's not one of these things where it's just like, oh, it's basically just a lead. It's not actually a solo. It is a solo, I can tell. But it's just not really doing anything musically interesting, and it's not doing anything really kind of flashy or anything musical or emotional. It's just like, this is a lead, I can tell, but I don't know what you're trying to do here. It's just a bit confusing, and then it just ends quite quickly. It's just like, okay, so you're not connected, you don't really care. And then, as I said, the whole song is just like, musically I can still tell you're gifted, the vocalist is great, there's some kind of good rhythms, and the chorus, the main chorus is just like, I like the energy and everything. It's just because the whole song always maintains this tempo, that's what brings it down. If they had high energies and everything, the whole song and all the parts would be great. It's just because it's all the same kind of tempo and energy, all in this one song, which then affects everything and kind of brings it down a bit. If they had a bit of variation in the kind of tempo and things, it would have worked, it would have been fine, but they don't, so... A bit bland, but still, it's not bad. It's not a track you're going to skip and just go, yeah, it's not doing it for me. You can still listen to it and it's like, yeah, I like it, it's just, it's not one of the best. But you can still listen to it and get enjoyment from it. So let's go on to the next track, Machine. So this track, Machine, is yet again one of the better tracks. It's starting off again with something quite different because the keys are extremely heavy at the start of the track, a very sci-fi kind of sound. The guitar's just doing the occasional chug, just done, and then pause, and then done. Until eventually, obviously, the guitars will kind of come in and do their thing. The keys are going over the top and everything, with a bit of a sci-fi kind of feel to it, and pretty prevalent in this intro and everything. When it gets to the verse, we've got something completely new kind of again. It's more of a kind of melodic musical thing, but it's basically just keys and drums. There's no guitar, there's bass and everything with the vocalist. It's not a melodic, it's something kind of musical. It kind of sounds like 80s kind of. It's like an 80s musical kind of pop kind of thing and everything in a club. And it actually sounds really nice. Like, the melody of this sounds really incredible, and it's quite unique. It's not a melody I usually hear a lot from bands, so it is actually quite nice. And then just it being bass and key, drum, her voice, and this kind of like 80s kind of club kind of style and everything, but obviously it maintains the kind of metal element to it as well. This is really kind of nice. It's like, this is kind of cool actually, because it's just something new. There's about 3 different versions of this first verse, so it comes to what you think is the pre-chorus, but it actually isn't. The chorus comes later, but basically the sound kind of just opens up a bit, and then you just kind of got piano stuff, a bit of guitar chugging, and then the guitars come back in, and then you've got keys, and her using a bit more of an energy to her and everything, being a bit higher. And then it kind of comes to the chorus, and then the chorus, she's got her voice faded in the background at first, and then she comes to the foreground, and then there's a lead going on, and then she goes back into the background and everything, and then she comes back into the foreground, and then the lead carries on again and everything. So a lot of kind of energy when she's in the background and everything, then she comes to the foreground with the kind of lead going on with the energy, and then it sounds musical and nice because of that lead and everything. So there's a lot kind of going on, and it just has great energy. It's really kind of musical, sounds really, really nice. When the next verse comes in, it doesn't have that no guitar stuff. It is actually just the guitars are there now for the whole thing. When it goes to that kind of break when the sound opens up and there was piano there, the vocalist actually sings it in a different kind of key and everything. She's in a higher range when she sings this part. It's actually quite high actually for her, and it yeah, sounds really incredible. It's nice just to get a different range this time round. Then this follows the same kind of trope and everything. Back to the chorus with all its energy in her in the background, and the foreground, and the background, and the foreground, and then the lead coming in and out and everything. So there's like a lot of kind of things and elements going on for the chorus. Sounds amazing. And then the solo, long solo, not one of the best. It's long, it's musical, it doesn't do a lot of anything kind of showing off. It is basically just some kind of like musical kind of solo he's doing. It doesn't have a lot of kind of heart or feel to it. There is a bit, it's just like, there's a bit of feel to this, but mostly it is basically just a guitar just doing a kind of more musical kind of solo and everything, a bit of pause and then come back and things, and yeah, it is a really good solo. Just I think there could have been a bit more variation to it, a bit more kind of emotion put in. But for what's there, again, it is still a very long solo with stuff going on, so I can't really argue that much. It's still really good. But I'm just gonna say it how it is. I've heard better on the album, and that's completely fine. So let's get into the next track, Red Sky. So Red Sky is the second and final melodic of the album. Now, I previously said that Sorrow Sacrifice is a melodic done right. So you may think, well, that means every band, as well as this band, should keep doing it in the way Sorrow Sacrifice did it. No, you don't do that. Even though I've said that is a really good way to go about a solo, the fact is Divine Ascension has done this melodic song, and if they were to make it the second one sound completely different, but follow the exact same kind of structure and everything, you would see it's just following the exact same structure, the same pattern. It does sound different, but it's just doing the same thing, and that's not what I want. I want a melodic song that's doing something new and different, but again, it still has to work. And Red Sky does that. So this song is 5 minutes 18, so still a lengthy song, not one of the longest they have. But this goes for the very melodic side. Now this can be very hard to do because a really long melody, there's not a lot going on, and there's obviously not a lot of energy, so it has to sound really beautiful and really nice, and you have to feel and connect with it in order for it to work. If you're not invested and you're not kind of emotionally connecting to the song, and it's going really slow, it just becomes incredibly boring and dull. But Red Sky is basically, for the majority of the song, piano, and that is it. And that's all that's going on. And then the vocalist, they do build up, kinda, but it's very, 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 very held back. It takes a long time. So you got the piano and everything, and I really like piano. I think piano is probably the best instrument to portray emotion. I love guitars, like the greatest instrument ever, but I think if guitar was to do a solo, then a piano would do a solo, I think the piano would sound a lot more emotional than what the guitar would do. Personally, I just think that. But the piano kind of keeps doing the same pattern. There is some kind of differentiating new kind of thing thrown in, but it is basically always the same piano thing. So that is obviously boring because it's the same piano rhythm for 5 minutes. So how can that really be fun? Well, it's the vocalist actually. The vocalist has a hell of a lot of range through this song. She sings high and then she puts energy in it, and then there's sometimes a tiny effect she'll use, and then there's range, and then she holds on to notes, and then some other notes she won't, and she'll be very mellow and dark with the notes, and then she'll come back to high energy. So her voice is doing all these different things with this melody, so it makes it actually sound diverse, and there is actually a fair bit going on when actually there isn't. And that is just down to her using her voice in many different ways. Eventually the drum comes in, but it's very subtle, and it just adds a little bit. And then eventually near the end, the guitar comes in, and it's just one note, just fretted and picked, so it's just dun. And there's nothing else, so he just waits until that note fades, and then it's just back to the piano and her, and then just down, and then just fade, which obviously is not doing a lot, but it actually is very kind of musical and stuff. So it's a blues thing, just to have one really nice sounding toned note and just have it play out for effect, and it works. And then there's pauses in songs, and then he'll do the one note when that's basically how he comes in. The song pauses for a bit, and then it just da, and then the song carries on. And then there's another pause, and then it goes into his solo, which kind of ends the song. And the tone and the melody of this solo, like, it's so emotional, the solo, and has a great tone. You really need a great tone. If it's just sharp and piercing, it would bloody kill the emotion of this song. So it's got a real nice warmth to it, nice tone, and yeah, it's just slow, and he lingers on notes. He has every note sings and everything. He's not trying to drown a few notes out to get to a decent note with a hold. Each note kind of plays its part. He has it sing, he has it speak for itself. And each note has weight to it and emotion, which is great. Eventually, the rhythm guitarist actually kind of comes in and actually gives a beefier sound along with the emotional part, just to bring it up a little bit. And then the guitarist, even though he's still doing the same thing, he adds a little bit just to work with the new thing he's given. He doesn't want to go to death metal kind of soloing, because it's quite thick, this rhythm underneath him, which actually nearly kind of drowns out his lead at times because it's so kind of thick and aggressive. But he keeps maintaining this kind of bluesy style of soloing, and being kind of slow with it, and holding on to each note and everything, having it play out. He just basically, with this aggressive rhythm, it just kind of adds just a new kind of element to the sound and everything. He can speed it up a tad bit and everything, at parts and everything, and it just makes a new kind of sound and everything underneath him. He can do a little bit more with it, but maintain you know, the kind of direction his solos doing and everything, and the idea. So yeah, it's a track that's not really doing a lot, but at the same time does a hell of a lot. Because the most of the track is just piano, but the vocalist is doing so many different kind of ranges and techniques and things, and then eventually the drum comes in and it's so subtle, but because it's so long and maintains the audience's ear for all this time with doing nothing really, and then the drum comes in, and then eventually the guitar comes in, it's just these really subtle, just one note things, and then it's a pause, and then everything in the song, and then he comes in, and then there's a pause, and then he comes in with the solo, and then the rhythm gets heavy and everything, and he's still doing this bluesy kind of solo and everything. It's like there's a lot going on, but it's very slow and it takes a long time to get there, but the vocalist is doing so much. It's just like, it's really, really good. It's a really slow, melodic song that has a lot to it, while not having a lot. It's a really kind of good way to do a full melodic song, just with a lot of vocal differentials, and then a solo which is actually really different and bluesy. If it was not really blues or something brand new, it would be a bit more stale, but because this is something new and so musical and nice sounding, it really helps. And then the really slow build up and everything to the change in sound, it really works. So let's get into the next track, The Final Stand. So The Final Stand is going back to the kind of full-on high energy and everything, taking all the kind of melody out, because with Machine we had the verses which were a bit kind of melodic, and then we had Red Sky which was pure melodic. So The Final Stand is kind of bringing back the kind of high energy, heavy stuff. The song actually starts off with the singer, but she's really faded in the background, singing a bit of the chorus. This has been done in other bands as well, where the lead singer is right in the background and they're singing a portion of the chorus, and then the actual intro comes in and leading to what the verse is, and then up to the proper chorus. So when the band comes in, the keys are heavy, the guitars are heavy and everything, all full on in there. The verse, though, still kind of has an energy to it, but the keys are a bit quite up front, giving it a bit of an energy and things. The vocals going at a decent pace and everything, but it's not really got the same kind of energy as Dawn Brings No Mercy or anything, with that kind of aggression or everything. The keys kind of give it a bit more of a softness and everything. The chorus goes at a pretty decent kind of pace and everything, but musically I still don't really think it's as good as the other tracks. It is a good track. I prefer it to the other two where I said I wasn't too keen on it. I just don't know, for some reason it just doesn't do it as much as the other stuff, which musically sounded amazing with a lot going on. Even though after the first chorus it goes completely melodic, everything kind of just cuts out and it's the vocalist. Doesn't last too long, eventually the entire band do come back in again and do the good thing back to the kind of chorus and stuff. It's a lot of high energy and there's still a fair bit kind of going on and stuff. But it just seems a bit straightforward to me. I don't know if it's basically just because there's not a lot of different stuff going on. It's basically just a lot of kind of high energy and things kind of following the same thing, and then here and there they kind of go off the beaten track. But for the most part they're just on this one kind of course and thing. The solo in this track though is unbelievable, the way he has it flow, because at first it is just a melodic solo, and that is kind of just it. It's just melodic and slow, and then he builds it up himself. Then it starts getting a really nice musical rhythm to it as he comes off the melodic. It's just melodic, and then it goes to this really rhythmic, beautiful sounding melody and everything, and then it goes into one of the more kind of high energy musical kind of stuff, a bit of flash and everything in it stuff. It's just like, I like how it started with the beautiful melody, and then he had this really nice kind of rhythm that was playing up into the second part of the solo, which was something a bit more kind of high energy. It's just like, I like how he progressed his own solo and then kind of kept changing and adapting it. I really liked that. So the solo was really good, how he went with that and how he went about it. But for the rest of the song, yeah, most of it is basically just kind of high energy and stuff. Not a lot of differentiating going on compared to previous tracks. It's just kind of fun, sort of high energy kind of track and everything. But Yeah, I think it's personally just me. It's just not sticking out as much as other tracks. So let's get on to the next one, Hideaway. So Hideaway is going back to a song which has a lot of kind of layers within it. It starts off typical, just guitar, keys and everything, but when it gets to the verse, it starts kind of melodic. You've got the keys, the voice, bit of drums and stuff, and bass. Guitar not being too kind of there, will do like the odd kind of note and everything in a kind of heavy channel while the singer's going, and then eventually the guitarist just kind of keeps coming more and more and more in, and then the rest of the band kind of just start kind of speeding up and everything, and then the vocalist kind of starts getting a bit more kind of power, and then that keeps kind of progressing, and then they keep kind of changing the kind of rhythm and everything within the verse and stuff. So the verse, it's just weird because it starts kind of melodic but not completely, because that guitar kind of is still kind of there, and they kind of just keep building up the pace and everything, and they kind of change the rhythm around and everything, and then kind of go in a different direction. And then you got the pre-chorus, which is very key heavy, with the vocalist just saying we're out to get you, but not in a sung way. It's kind of like whispered and everything, not soft like she sounds. The volume is exactly the same as how she's been singing throughout the song, but it just it sounds kind of whispered, but not really. It's just a different kind of technique she's using and everything when she's saying they're out to get you, they're out to get you, they're out to get you, with the keys being very heavy. Then it goes into the actual kind of chorus, which has a bit of a kind of bombastic nature to it and stuff. And then it goes back to the verse with all of its kind of different kind of parts and things that it's doing. The solo is now back to one of the more kind of flashy solos, so it's still got musical elements to it. It's not just all about shred. So he has shred, and then he'll go to something a bit kind of more musical and everything to break it up a bit, and then do something a bit kind of flashy and everything. So it's not just hammered in all this kind of one type of thing. So let's go on to the last track now, Memoria's Longing. So this final track, Memoria's Longing, it's 5 minutes 31 seconds, so a pretty long track, and all it is acoustic and singing. That is it. There's no one else there. It's just acoustic, an acoustic song with singing that lasts 5 minutes 31. Now that may sound painful to a fair few people, to just be like, well, that's going to be so bloody boring. But there's no solo, which, yeah, is a problem and takes away some new kind of thing that they could put into the song. So it is basically just rhythm acoustic with vocals for 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes, and that is it. So, as I said, this will sound kind of painful to a lot of people and think, well, there's obviously not a lot there. It's going to get boring and stale because it's going to be the same thing over and over and over again. But this is the thing. The band are good at changing things up and doing a lot of different things. So even though it is just acoustic, he keeps changing how he plays and everything, and the vocalist keeps changing how she sings and everything, which keeps the song like not just one thing, but it has different stuff going on with just these two things. So starting off, it's just a musical kind of rhythm and everything, a bit of slapping on the acoustic, which adds kind of the beat and everything. And then the vocalist is singing in a very kind of melodic kind of voice and everything. When it gets to the chorus though, the strumming becomes a bit more kind of stronger and everything, just and stuff. The vocalist starts using a bit more power. Then it goes back to that really kind of melodic kind of rhythm with the acoustic, with a bit of slapping on the guitar, with the melodic singing, and then back to the chorus and everything, a bit more of an aggressive kind of picking, with the vocalist using more energy, and then he'll do something new rhythmically, the acoustic, and then vocally she'll be using some new kind of range and technique and things, and then at the end they just kind of keep playing up on that. So the guitar will be doing something different, vocally she's doing something different, So that is basically it. So as the song keeps going, the acoustic is doing different things. So he's got that kind of slapping on the acoustic, which is the kind of technique. I know with bass there's like slap and pop. This is just kind of slap. But yeah, he's doing that and it's musical. Then with the chorus, he gets a bit more aggressive in his picking and everything. And then the vocalist has gone from melodic to a bit more of a powerful voice. Then the acoustic will do something a bit more kind of fast but musical and everything, and then the voice will do something more musical and things, and then it'll go somewhere else, and then the voice will go somewhere else. So even though it is very simple with it being just a voice and acoustic, it is kind of showing just for 5.5 minutes, these two simple things can do a fair bit and keep a song engaging and interesting and diverse. Which is the special thing about it. I'm not going to say it's one of the best tracks because of what it is. Obviously, you can get a lot more out of more, but I still appreciate it for what it is, of it being something very kind of simple, but still interesting and diverse. And that would be something, again, slightly hard to pull off, but it's something they do. And yeah, that's basically the album for Divine Ascension Liberator. There are 2 bonus tracks if you get the tour edition, but what I've downloaded isn't the tour edition, so I can't put in the last 2 tracks. And some people may only just have these amount of tracks and not have the tour edition, which I think came later after the Liberator release. But yeah, it's 2 tracks, which is Solemn Nights and In This Embrace. I would say it's worth it because both tracks have solos, both tracks are musically still got a lot of stuff going on and everything. It adds length to the album. And from looking at it, it's not really expensive, it's only just a few pound more, dollars, whatever the hell your currency is, just a bit more. So it shouldn't be too bad or anything, so I would say go out there, and I won't talk about it because I don't have the music to put in with it. And it'll just give you something interesting to look forward to because you won't really know what's going on. I'll just basically say a lot of stuff goes on in the tracks, there's great solos, and I'll leave it at that. So now we have to talk overall about Liberator. So it's an incredible album. There's so much diversity going on. The tracks are all like 5 minutes upwards, which is amazing. You get a really lengthy album, and if you go with the tour edition, you get an unbelievably long album. The tracks have so much going on within them, and then you get some more of a simpler track that's still lengthy and still a lot going on compared to other bands. And then you've got some great leads. You had the key leads that are just in 2 songs, which is a shame. I would have liked more. But for what was there was amazing. The vocalist has an unbelievable range to her, like so many ranges she has, and it's incredible. The melodies, both of them, absolutely incredible. And yes, there was only 2. Memoria's Longing obviously is kind of a melody, and that was quite unique. Didn't have a solo in it though, and neither did My Contender Lies. And then we've got My Contender Lies I wasn't too into, same with Crystal Tears. The other tracks like Final Stand were good and everything, just not as good as others. Same with Memoria's Long, and I do like the track, it's just other tracks can do better. But yeah, scoring this, it would be a 9 out of 10. Because there are fantastic solos, there's so much going on, so much range, a lot of musicality, key solos, really talented singer with absolute range. The songs last a long time. There is always different stuff going on within the songs, and there's more simple songs, so it doesn't become overwhelming. The melodies are actually incredible. Some other bands, when they go about doing a melody, it is basically just a melodic song and that is it, and it just dies and they don't do anything. There's no changing, there's no different stuff going on, there's no solos, there's just nothing. It's just melodic, which makes it dull. It's not getting a 10 or anything higher than that because that's for bands which really do incredible stuff. So yeah, 9 out of 10. And with their new album, Liberator just does way more. Their new album, musically, is a lot more straightforward. It doesn't have all these unique ranges going on. It's just kind of straightforward. Has 5 solos, and then half the album doesn't have solos, which is unbelievably stupid. So this album compared to that, like I gave that album a 7 or something. So pretty damn bad when compared to this, which only came before. And if I was scoring it with these two combined instead of just having it stand out on itself, that album would be something like around a 3 because it's just completely pointless compared to this thing. Saying should you buy the album? Yeah, I would say you should buy Liberator, definitely, because it's an incredible album. I don't see how anyone could really have a problem with it. But then the other problem with saying go and buy the album is the fact that I like to have a collection. I don't like to just have one album by a band and then the rest of the stuff I don't like. Because I don't think Evermore, I don't know if that's the title of their newest album, but the newest one, I wouldn't say is really worth it. Because you would listen to Liberator. If you have Liberator, if you can listen to Liberator, I don't see why anyone would go to the new album. Because it is just so dreadful in comparison to this thing. So, if you want a catalogue and to follow a band, well, so far you can't. Because the direction they're going at the minute is terrible. They've dropped solos, they've dropped all the unique stuff going on, they've dropped all the keys and everything because they don't even have a keyboardist anymore. They've dropped all the structures and everything and the ranges and solos. Just so much dropped out of in the new album. Which means if that's the new album, if they keep following in this pattern, I wouldn't go with them. It just wouldn't be doing good enough. Because I know they can do something like Liberator. So I wouldn't follow, so I just have this one album and I wouldn't follow the band. And I wouldn't waste time just having just one album and then just not really care or follow the band. Personally, I don't do that. So if people don't mind just having the one album and just be fine and they don't care where the band goes, then yeah, you can get it. But if you kind of want a collection and to keep following a band, but you can't because of the new album, you agree with me and you don't think it's really good enough, then Liberator won't be good enough to buy. But depending whenever they get around to doing another album and how that is, then yeah, I'd buy Liberator and I'd just jump to the album they put out. But so far, Liberator is basically just a standalone thing, and then the rest of the band and what they do and everything, just it isn't good enough. The album cover, I don't know why there's a Stargate in the background, but yeah, there's that. But yeah, 9 out of 10. It's an incredible album. The album that followed this is absolutely dreadful. I don't see why anyone would listen to it or say or go near it, just because Liberator is just out on its own. It's like a completely different band. And yeah, if you like to follow a band and everything and have a catalogue, you can't really, just because there's just no point having the other album when you have Liberator. So and that is kind of about it. So yep, 9 out of 10. Great album. I would get it. If you want a collection and everything, then you need to hold off until they do another album, because yeah, their newest one is just absolutely terrible in comparison. So that will be the end of this review, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone.